Welcome to the Kawartha Small Business Podcast, where we believe the Kawarthas can be the most thriving region in Canada for small business. I am Brian Rump from Profit Coach.
And I'm Matt Garrity of Matt AG Digital.
All right, Matt, today we are talking about being Kawartha famous. I think this is, I picked this up and put it on our episode list from something you said, because we were talking about sort of the drive to for people who want to get famous, and you were like, I want to be Kawartha famous. So now
Yeah.
we're going to talk about it for a bit.
Yeah, that sounds like something I would say.
Yeah. So are you Kawartha famous yet?
I don't know how to answer that. I want to say actually a little bit yes. And then I want to say probably most people don't know about me, which is a good thing, I suppose. I guess by pure statistics, more people don't know me than do know me. And from business owners, that would be more interesting to know. How many people do you think know me of business owners? A quarter of them? That sounds high.
Yeah, it's probably not. Actually, I love how where this has turned already, because I was like, part of me was like, do we want to record this episode today? But we're pretty diligent with our planning, so it kind of is hard to change topics at the last minute. But the reality is, and this is a Donald Miller quote, not enough people know who you are. So it's a lot of work to get Kawartha famous, where a lot of people know who you are and what you do. So when you think about the reality, and I think you quote the stat, how many businesses are in like the downtown Lindsay BIA, and it's like way more than most would guess. Like we have thousands of businesses in City of Kawartha Lakes. We use the broader Kawartha region. Like that number is even bigger, and a fraction even know who you are, who probably less know who I am. And from the average business, probably most just don't even know who you are.
No, yeah. Within the 2 blocks of Lindsay downtown, there's 150 ish businesses. I want to say it's even closer to 180, somewhere in
Yeah.
that range. And that's a lot in 2 blocks. It's a very congested area there. But even if you think all along Kent Street, like head all the way down to like Big Box Alley, down in the west end there, there's more businesses even in that little area. I don't even
Oh
know
yeah.
like the Lindsay downtown businesses, how many of those people know me. And like I am on the board of directors and I am the chair of the marketing committee. And I don't even know if half the people there even know who I am.
Oh yeah. And I think it's fun to talk about that and realize just how much work there is to do in your own backyard when we talk about marketing, building a business, setting up who your client base is. Um, you know, Depending what you're doing, being Kawartha famous is a big viable goal. Just to have enough people know who you are, that you exist, um, trying to get them to know what you do, how you make people's lives better, how to do business with you. Like there's a lot right there to work with.
Yeah. What were we talking about to even prompt that conversation? Like, were we talking about influencers even?
I think a bit of influencers. I think it sparked from we did an episode a little while ago called "Why Not Here," and there's the draw to try to get famous. People want to be an entrepreneur, well known. They seek sort of going outside. It's like, hey, people from Toronto know about us, or they want to get world sort of recognition right away.
Right, right,
When
right.
you might want to start with being Kawartha famous.
Right. Now I'm remembering that very well. Where my mindset was, I don't really care to be famous in Toronto or someone the other day was telling me they listened to that episode specifically that you mentioned, and they were like crying, they were laughing so hard because I think, I don't know if I was insulting people or making fun of people from Vancouver and how I don't like working with them. And I'm
Yeah,
sure no one is from Vancouver is ever going to listen to this. Hopefully, I don't really care. But I don't care if I'm famous in Vancouver. I don't care if anybody in Vancouver knows who I am.
yeah,
I want people in Kawartha to know who I am. And I don't even really want them to know who I am personally. I could not even care less about that. I just want them to know who I am professionally, like as a business owner. I want everyone in the Kawarthas that is a business owner to know who I am. That's where I was coming from, Kawartha Famous.
yeah. That's awesome, and I think that's it's a big goal, right? And I think there's a funny part of it where people think, "Oh, we're a small town, like it's not that big of a goal," but it's a big goal, and it's hard to do that. So I think it's sort of awesome to focus on what's right in front of you, the success that you can have within being Kawartha famous. If you look at being nationally famous and internationally, like the numbers of people who could sort of fit in those boxes get smaller and smaller and smaller. Like people want to be an influencer or whatever. But if you look at even national influencers, like how many really are there? Like 10? There's probably less that everyone knows about. So you're still having to carve out a niche somewhere in some sort of industry or community, even to be known. And there's probably thousands of competent professionals sort of within even those niches that are worthy of being known and can help you out. So it's just really hard the bigger the market and reach you want.
Yeah. And honestly, I think that probably any business in Kawartha Lakes that their audience and target is Kawartha Lakes should be having the goal of being Kawartha famous. And I think too many people take it for granted that they're just gonna there's gonna be word of mouth or referrals, or I'm gonna open my door and people are gonna know who I am. I think I've heard you say it on this podcast before, or even in conversation when you've had conversations with business owners and they're surprised when they hear not everyone knows who they are.
Yeah. Oh, I think it's so fascinating, like working with different people, and they're like, "Oh, everyone knows me," and it's like, no, they don't. Like, this is the first I've heard of you. Or some of my favorites are people will tell stories about people coming into their business and being like, "Oh, how long have you been here?" And they're like 15 years, and they're like, "Oh, well, this used to be," and they'll name the business that it was like in the 70s or something. They just don't even know. So there's a lot of work to do to get that consistent, sort of well known. I think too, uh, something as well is just the um, kind of business you can build being regionally famous is great. Like, you can make a lot of money, you can build a business that generates the wealth that you want. So there's really not that need to go beyond that if your big goal is to make money, unless, of course, it's maybe the massive scale and you want to be like Amazon or, you know, the really big success, which is very, very few businesses. But, you can have an awesome business being Kawartha famous.
Yeah. And not to derail this at all, but Amazon is where they are because of their e-commerce capabilities. And
Yeah.
we still talk to people every day that are hesitant, sometimes they even get a website. Second of all, to do anything online like e-commerce capabilities. So there's a long way to go before I think a lot of that happens around here. But like you said, spoiler alert, this is a marketing situation. And if you want to be Kawartha famous, or you want to be Lindsay famous and start in your hometown where you live, you need marketing. You need people to know who you are. You need to go into meetings. And I'm trying to follow an example that like is appropriate or makes some sense here, where I've had people recently tell me, this was an insurance broker, I will say, it was like, you're the only guy in town that does this. I just see you everywhere. And I'm like, I didn't say this out loud, but like, of course, there's other people out there doing
Oh
marketing
yeah.
locally, but I am everywhere. I put a good amount of effort into being everywhere. I'm all over social media because people spend a ton of time there. And no, every time someone sees my ad, I'm not getting someone call or reach out to me, but I'm getting that awareness. And when the time comes for them to reach out or refer a friend, I'm that guy that's everywhere. And that's how I am slowly but surely, professionally becoming Kawartha famous.
Yeah, and I like that slowly, surely, consistently. That's really that path to being able to do that. The other element of this that's kind of neat is um, I love sort of regionally famous businesses. When I'm a bit of a tourist and driving around, I do look at like billboards or ads just to try to see who do I recognize, especially in areas that are maybe touristy or cottage country. There are businesses where you just get that awareness, and again, it could take years to build, and then somebody needs that, and they only have that one place to go because that's who they know from, the Kawarthas or whatever that region that you're in.
I always find billboards are interesting from a restaurant perspective when I'm going into like a smaller town around the Kawarthas that I'm not very familiar with, where I'll remember the billboard. But you know what I find is extremely ineffective billboard marketing around here is realtors. Because there's got to be like 100,000 realtors with billboards around here, and I can't differentiate any of them. Like I know a lot of them, and I've worked with a lot of them, and I can kind of tell you which ones I have billboards and like roughly where they are. But that to me is one of the most, I don't know, I want to say useless billboards out
Yeah.
there is for the realtors around here because like it's all the same. They're like, we know the Kawarthas, we love the Kawarthas, we want to get you into your dream home in the Kawarthas. Call me. And it's like, how are you differentiating yourself? I can't remember anybody. Like I remember the restaurants. Like okay, I thought I saw something going into Finland about such and such food. Now I'm going to go check that out. The realtors though, that's a mess in my opinion.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's funny how that works. Yeah, I agree. I used to be, in some ways, I'm anti-billboard for certain things, but there are times where, yeah, especially in cottage country, have your billboard up for certain businesses. Especially if it's something that traveling people want. So, like food, right? I know I've driven places, and I grew up going from, Belleville area to north of Bancroft to a trailer, and I can tell you like the names of different billboards along the way of like restaurants that have been there forever that are like, turn left in 5 kilometers, or you build some excitement over those, and that's a fun thing to do to become, you know, sort of regionally famous. Sometimes is just people know that you exist. They might not have been there, but they know that you exist, and you're the place to go for, cottage country, unique small town restaurant or something.
Yeah. Kawartha Famous is it's fun, it's interesting, and I'm sure like in these regional markets where you become known or people recognize your face, it's a good thing for your business. Like it's constantly some awareness. But it also, I don't know if it's challenging or if it's a pain or whatever. It's not really a pain, but I cannot go out in Lindsay at any time of the day, wherever I'm going, and I've never not run into someone. And it sounds like I'm exaggerating, but I honestly promise you it's not.
Yeah.
A grocery store, walking somewhere. Lindsay downtown's a little bit different because I do work with a handful of people down there and have relationships with a lot of people down there. But like anywhere else in Lindsay, Like you go to North Ward Coffee, Fresh Fuel. I see someone there every time I go there. That beyond Leanna and Lewis that I know. It's a good and a bad thing. When I go to the market like every Saturday in the summer, I run into someone that I know. It's not even a run in at this point. I kind of plan for it. Like I
Yeah.
used to enjoy rolling out of bed on Saturday, not showering, going down to the market in like track pants or whatever. Now I gotta
Um,
get up. I gotta like look presentable. I like, believe it or not, I don't know if you've seen it me or at the market or anywhere else, but like I've actually put effort into my appearance to make sure I don't look like a slob or something. So it has its ups and downs. Like I went out to Olympia last Tuesday with my wife for lunch, and we sat on the patio. It was like a beautiful day. I we talked to five different people that we knew that were walking by,
oh yeah.
friends and like other like business acquaintances. So my wife was fine with it. Like she's really good with that. But in my head, I'm like, she's got to be getting annoyed soon, like at any point here.
Oh yeah. I just think there's so many people who don't even know you. So, yeah, but it's good to, build that. And I think that's the small town relationships you want to build. And pretty much any local business, I think, has room to do that. I think there are some long term businesses that most people generally know. I think even then, there's people will have misconceptions over what that business is. I find the other one that's interesting when you are famous is sometimes people think, oh, they're too busy for me, or they don't deal with
Mm.
little old me. And that's something, again, with your messaging, you can try to make sure that you're capturing everyone, especially the business is putting a lot of effort into that awareness. You want people to deal with you. You might be that high volume business that deals with almost sort of everybody who needs whatever that service is.
Yeah, I always find it so short sighted though when people say, I don't need to do marketing or like just in general, people know who I am because, like you said, it's a small town. It's not really a small town. It has like small town qualities, and maybe that's a different conversation. But the population of Kawartha Lakes and the population of Lindsay, it's very large. There's a lot of
Oh
people
yeah.
here. It's growing. It's going to explode in the next couple of years. It's not a small town anymore. So we need to almost like erase that from our vocabulary too and start paying a little bit more attention to the size and how this region, if not already, should be thriving soon. So,
Oh yeah. And yeah, more people coming here is opportunities for people to know who you are, what you do. So you need that consistent effort all of the time. It's interesting. This is maybe another conversation you talked about. Oh, should be thriving soon. I feel like that's one of those age old comments where everyone always thinks they're not in the glory days and like everything will get slightly better later. Um, I guess my challenge to that is we are in the glory days. There are businesses who are, Kawartha famous for years. Kawartha Dairy might be the most Kawartha famous business, um, that has really growing their sort of brand outside of the Kawarthas. But for a long time, before they were available, as widely as they are now outside the Kawarthas, like people just knew of that brand from coming here, right? Like you talk to people who've cottaged in this region for decades, and they're like, "Oh, I remember, Kawartha Dairy." And I think
yeah.
every region has the opportunity for multiple, businesses like that. You don't have to be nationally famous or internationally sort of as a chain, but you could be, that awesome place that is, famous in that community.
Yeah, and it's interesting what you're saying too about like growth and more people coming in and not knowing who you are. That's what was the catalyst for a conversation I had with someone else recently. And again, I won't use their name at this point, but this person had said he always looked down on other people in his industry that were doing marketing, as in it seemed like they were desperate and didn't have enough work. That's a different conversation. But, anyways, he's now kind of turned around on this idea because he sees the trend that's already happening and continuing to happen of people from Toronto and the GTA and Durham that are moving up here at like a rapid pace. And he realizes, okay, I'm Kawartha famous already. People already know who I am. But what about these people that aren't even from the Kawarthas that are putting down roots here? They don't know who I am. They can't find me online. I don't have
Oh,
any.
yeah.
They can't find my website on Google. My social media is bland as anything. And he knows this, but he just didn't care. Because he's like, I am Kawartha famous. There's like a handful of people in town. I've got like great presence where I am. Everyone knows who I am. We have a great reputation. That's all fine. But he's actually like aware of where this is going. And he's like,
Yeah.
this is going to be a disaster real quick in a couple of years.
Oh, yeah. And I think that sort of opens up another awesome reason to, keep up just the awareness part, because you get people who are coming, they're going to go to places that are familiar to them. So, they're going to go to Tim Hortons for their coffee. They're going to go to chain restaurants because they don't know much better. But what you want to be doing is, inviting people into experiencing your sort of locally famous brand. Like, hey, welcome to Lindsay. The place to go for lunch is, the Olympia, or Saturday night you want to be at Pane Vino, or pick a restaurant, pick a place. You want to get your different services from these people who are local, been around here a long time, and it sort of makes you feel at home and part of the community when you're now doing business with those, you know, locally famous businesses.
Yeah, it's. I want to say it's a challenge for these businesses, but in so many cases, it's not. It's marketing again.
Yeah, marketing. I was thinking over the weekend, it's we've lost a lot of local TV, local media is sort of declining. But I think of back when I was a kid, I grew up in the Belleville area. We didn't have local TV, but we got TV from Peterborough and Kingston. And like I knew about a lot of businesses from the commercials on those businesses. So when I think of uh, sort of Peterborough and the Kawarthas, where I now would consider my home, there's a lot of like long term brands that I just know from watching TV as a kid, and it makes you feel part of that community and local. So having that stuff out there, like you're building that long term following.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why newspaper is important for a lot of businesses and industries because that's the local source for it. That's what a lot of people still turn to. Like, okay, what are people doing in this community? But like as we've talked about, I'm a big believer in all kinds of awareness on any kind of channel. So whether it's TV, radio, newspaper, digital, so then social and Google and all these things, like realistically, you need to be everywhere.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
it never happens though. It's always a resource thing, and then you need to kind of be a little bit choosy. But as long as you're getting awareness, like that's the first step in becoming Kawartha famous.
Yeah, yeah. I want to be Kawartha famous. I think, one of the keys to a thriving, spot for small business is just lots of businesses, Kawartha famous. People know it's a vibrant community that has, a lot of unique businesses to that community. It's not just a sort of colony set up for, big international chains. You have that uniqueness in those awesome businesses. Awesome. Any last thoughts on being Kawartha famous?
Just be careful what you wish for. You're not going to be able to go out in the market in your sweatpants all the time anymore if you become
Oh, I
Kawartha.
still can. All right, awesome. Well, if you are listening to this and you want to be Kawartha famous, we'd love to work with you. Check us out at kawarthasmallbusinesspodcast.ca. We can help you start, grow, or recharge your business. Or you can just send us an email directly at setitup@kawarthasmallbusinesspodcast.ca.